On end bad governance in Nigeria protests, we are after only enemy of the state. This is from the military. End bad governance in Nigeria protest. Atiku warns service chiefs against shooting. On economic hardship, federal government palliatives will not address food inflation. That's from Expert. These are the issues we'll be looking at today. Remember, you can join us on all our media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X, Atlantic TV Net. You can also watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. When we return from the short break, I will introduce my guest for today's show. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. And joining me in this conversation this afternoon is a public affairs analyst. I'm talking about Wealth Odiyemi.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here today.
Amazing. Good to have you. Did you go for protest yesterday?
No, I watched them from a distance.
Okay. The first story for today is from Lagos State. Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the Lagos State government to investigate the death of Pelumi Onifade, a 20-year-old reporter who died in police custody during the NSAS protest in 2020. The court, presided over by Justice Ayokunle Olayenka Faji, mandated a coroner inquest to determine the cause of death and identify those responsible. The judgment was delivered in response to a suit filed by the Media Rights Agenda against the police and the Lagos State government. The MRA's claims that Onifade's death violates its constitutional rights were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. However, the court directed the Attorney General of Lagos State to conduct an inquest and prosecute anyone found culpable. Despite acknowledging the lack of a case filed, the Attorney General's consuls assured the court of their readiness to conduct an inquest. Yes, Mr. Wells, you can actually tell that Federal High Court, like we stated here in Lagos, has ordered the Lagos State government to investigate the death of Pelumi Onifade, a 20-year-old reporter who died in police custody during the NSAS process. But this actually came up after the Commonwealth urged the General Secretary, that is Priscilla Scotland, to hold Nigerian authority accountable for the attack on journalists. You can attest that during this protest, this end bad governance in Nigeria, especially in Calabar, about 3 to 4 journalists were ripped away by, don't know whether it's security personnel, but what we were told is that is security agencies that actually came with vehicles and took them away. They came precisely for them. Not that they came in the process, they mistook journalists to be just normal protesters. So the attack on journalists has become rampant in these present days. So that now led to House of Rep calling on this, the courts calling on this. Remember that this matter actually died down because they said they didn't have enough evidence. And even now that they've said they want to take it up again, it's not that they have more evidence. They are only starting from where they stopped. So what do you think about this? Is it not bringing back?
No, play back history, especially when you are in a terrain as the third world country. It's not relating with Nigeria alone. So, Onifade experienced an unfortunate one, and you could see that there are underlying intentions to, as to what led to his death while in the custody of the security agencies. So it's worrisome. It's not about opening up old wounds or what we have forgotten or what Nigerians have forgotten. The point is that what is also going on currently is a pointer towards another Onifade case, waiting to happen, or if it's not happening already. So it's a worrisome trend, but the fact that all concerned is, I think, is a general challenge all over the world, even in some of the war-torn environment or places where there seems to be an unrest. Aside, you have the civilian casualty. Another casualty records you tend to see, or it's a recurring reality. It's that journalists are also caught in the web of such activities or such unfortunate incidences. So what this points to some persons who are concerned stakeholders is, you may not want to push this, but there again, in life, it's even risky if you are not taking any risk. So there will be some beneficiaries of some of these struggles. But sometimes, according to history, as is relating to this part of the world, is that those who probably stand in the forefront of the struggle may not be around enough to experience the benefit of this struggle. Of course, those who probably are in government, as they say, years ago, they were also part of a struggle way down in 1993, thereabouts. And during the era of the military, many of those who stood their ground then neither around, or some are not in the public glare anymore, to attest to some of their experiences. So it's a call for us, and a worrisome one at that, especially for people, your colleagues, who are always at the forefront in reporting events you know, it's so unfortunate that the system and the, you know, government in this environment or in this space
telling them about the protection of their own citizens. But again, what do you think the federal government can do to be able to protect this set of individuals? Because it's not just enough to say, yes, I mean, the security personnel should respect the rights of journalists, which is not, we are not seeing it happening anytime soon, because even in the protest, I mean, like, they are still crying. And according to what we read in the report today, that there might be 2 or 3 who are still behind the bars who have not gained their freedom yet, and they have not actually gone for trial. So they're still there, not just journalists anyways.
Technically, looking at it, today is the 7th of the protest. At least I've seen some reports as to how some journalists have been manhandled. Some were harassed and some were threatened. Somewhere in Abuja, we saw one 2 days ago. You know, it's whether the government has to wait till when foreign missions and international organization that, you know, stands for the protection of the rights of journalists all over the world tend to wade in before the government will rise up to its responsibility. It's also that the unions and the organizations, so the professional angle of this profession, persons saddled with that responsibility, also pushing it both locally and internationally to ensuring that it generates the commanding attention where justice will be demanded to be. So if you look at the Olifade case, as the case may be, you will see that if you read far, you want to. It's not you are trying to be preemptive of the outcome of the yet to commence investigation, but from the look of things, they were saddled. The Attorney General of Lagos State was saddled with the responsibility to open up the investigations and to see if persons who are culpable will be apprehended and, you know, asked to face the music. Tells you straight away that nothing will or may not entirely come out of such. Even if you set up an investigation, there are foundations required to kickstart an investigation, and there are pointers. Now, if these pointers are not there, and then you are just throwing a commentary or a directory that has no foundation upon which it can stand, it tells us straight away that at the end of the day, it will just be it will just be another case that investigation will be thrown open and there will not be a final conclusion of the matter. You'll remember the one we discussed last time we met about the young chap who died. Investigation, autopsy upon autopsy, autopsy upon autopsy. And it's a vicious circle. It's just a vicious circle that at the end of the day, you literally forget that such matter was apparently out for investigation. So it is worrisome, but there again, it should still not be a ground for, you know, journalists and related profession to shy away from their responsibility, because elsewhere in the world, the same fate also awaits its action and demanding accountability, and then also ensuring that security agencies, who oftentimes are not, are always in the subject of discourse when a journalist is abused or the right of a journalist is infringed upon. You always say that aside the populace, it's always oftentimes that agents of government who are always culpable in such engagement.
Now, Mr. Weld, before we go to the next story, now looking at what actually happened in 2020, which like I said, a lot of persons are just trying to put their mind behind looking at what is actually going on in Nigeria, this inflation, the hardship, and all of those. And now, in the course of this investigation, don't you think it's going to raise something different? Another thing is going to raise another cause. Remember that Till now, Lai Mohammed still stood on his word that nobody actually died at the toll gate, and this issue initially, when this issue came up, they didn't say that she actually died in the custody. It was through their investigation they got to realize that it was actually in the police custody, because they thought that she was among the people who died at the toll gate, even though they still said that nobody died. So don't you think this is going to create a different chaos altogether?
Well, from the underlying story, as it were, revolving that matter, it's telling you that there are some powers that are keenly interested of sweeping that matter, under the carpet. Otherwise, why the contradictions in the reporting? She was in the custody, she was not in the custody, and then the matter was, presented court, and the ground upon which the case was struck out, as it were, is that there's no sufficient evidence to, nail persons who probably an accusing fingers are pointed towards. So what that tells us straight away is that it's a two-way coin. For those who probably the outcome of the matter favors, that apparently they are not mentioned after all, because there are no sufficient ground to pin them to the incidents, and then you are now asking for a fresh investigation. So persons who probably benefited from the outcome of no headway will ensure that if there are losing ends, that will be a pointer linking them to it. They will just find a way around it to tighten or loose ends, if there are any. At the end of the day, we are still, as I said, more like a vicious circle. You probably put an accusing finger at persons or the state actors, as it were, but there again, there is no substantial evidence
for now,
which you can actually, fly or push your argument. Good enough, it has happened. It's also a eye opener to players on either of the divide, whether you are for the people or you are against the people, or the overzealous trigger happy for which actions that are against humanity punishable.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wealth. And now the second story for today on bad governance in Nigeria. A Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, announced that the military and the security agencies are pursuing those behind calls for undemocratic government change following the End Bad Governance protest. He emphasized that the military is committed to protecting Nigeria and targeting only those against the state. Service Chief echoes the commitment to national security and this army focusing on quelling riots, and the Navy and Air Force ensuring maritime and air safety respectively. The Nigerian Immigration Service has placed the several sponsors of the protest on a watch-like list for arrest upon entering into Nigeria. Additionally, the Inspector General of Police, Ebetokon Kayode, reveals that some sponsors' bank accounts have been blocked and denied using excessive force during the protest, stating that no live ammunition was used. The Department of State Service also reported tracking and arresting some protest sponsors. Amazing. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, the military, said the military and the security agencies are after those, that is the enemy of the state, on democratic governance change, and military is committed to protecting Nigeria. Okay, now the people are the Nigerian is actually the people, right? And during this protest, we have seen so far where the security personnel started shooting. We've equally seen where they throw tear gas at the protesters.
We will tell you allegedly. Because we're just coming out from
exactly
a matter that says there is no substantial evidence.
Exactly, and we saw that in a video. I don't know what that video like these days. Maybe
some will tell you. I think there are some reports. They will tell you they are showing old video to advance public sentiment or defend their cause, intervention as the case may be. No, these are some of what concerned stakeholder foresaw as to, place cause of cautioning in going for protesting, particularly this end hunger protest. Because it's a mixed multitude experience or engagement where you have those who are genuinely calling for government reason to rescind some of his decisions that has kept us in this quagmire, because it seems as if suddenly we are bereft of experts, economic experts, those who are gifted with the ability to draft up policy that can, take us out of the woods. Suddenly, analysts, whether social welfare analysts or as the case may be, it seems as if the credibility associated with experts in varying fields around economics, everybody has gone on holiday, because it seems as if God holding the future of Nigerians, and government is not strong enough or has the wherewithal to go after this person. So rather than getting or going for this person, they go out after the majority, so that the cry and the pressure of the majority will get to these persons who seems to have been the one behind our challenge, as the case may be, so that they can actually loosen the rope, and then there will be normalcy.
But Mr. Wells, when Christopher Musa, as the general, said that they're after the enemies of the state, who are the enemies of the state? Because they have not brought anyone to a book. We haven't seen where they say, yes, we have gotten one person. Even when they were talking about the organizers of the protest, remember that at some point they were saying that there are spirits. Spirit, goes behind organizing of protests, because they haven't seen anyone so far.
They say they are faceless.
Okay, but no. They use anyways. They say faceless. Khan said they are ghosts. It's ghosts that is behind it, and so far we see them attacking Nigerians. So is it that Nigerians are the enemy of the state, the enemies of the state? We really want to understand, because his statement is looking a little bit.
What is going on is worrisome, because we just came out of election period, and a lot of people will start making certain postulations. There are some concern or calls or arguments that those who probably lost out in the last election have been consistently inciting the public and their followers as to some of what they express as concern during the electoral season, that those who seems to be in power right now, we told you people that they are not competent, they are this and all that. So whipping public sentiment, to back up their own argument. And then some of them are those who probably, are strong weight behind the scene, not publicly as aware because of certain implications, considering the fact that the season that we have right now is a very volatile season. You have to be very cautious. The tense is already at its highest degree. And even if you are making statements, and those statements is not supporting the general perception of the tempo of the moment, you'll probably be seen as the anti-people. And there again, you now see that the people are now charged up, the protest is on. The security agencies need to, as I said earlier on, that you probably least expect anything less than what the service chiefs are saying, that they are practically against those who are perceived enemy of the, the state, and those who are inciting for, it has now, from their own language, metamorphosed from protest to rioting, because you probably won't want to understand as to why we say we are in this collectively, and then the victim of the movement are innocent Nigerians who naturally supposed to go about their normal business, but they are being infringed, their rights is being infringed, their private entities are being, vandalized, and some of their wares and goods and what have you being looted and all that. And then you can't expect the security agencies to follow. They also don't want to be categorical. They don't want to come out, categorically about mentioning names of persons. So that you probably don't know the kind of influence those persons. Government will always tell you, we know the sponsor and we are monitoring them, and we will probably want the same thing happened during the NSAS era.
Well, I think it's high time, or maybe they don't think it's high time they bring out those who they know, instead of just saying we know the sponsors and yet nothing is done. Because the one they rightly mentioned, remember, he came out to say that he doesn't know anything about it. That was in Abuja.
Provided the people will also not say, or such persons will not say they are being victimized, and that they know nothing, and then you begin to see public sentiment.
It's okay.
Oh, it's our son, it's our daughter, why are you intimidated, and all that stuff.
It's okay. This is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this short break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. You can join us on all our media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X Atlantic TV, Nigerian Armed Forces, that those who authorize the use of lethal force against peaceful civilians protesters will be held responsible for committing crimes against humanity even in the years following their retirement from service. He added the constitutional right to engage in protest is firmly established within our supreme law and reinforced by the judiciary in the solemn duty of the government and security agencies to ensure a safe and protected environment for individuals exercising their right to peaceful protest. This is not far-fetched from what we talked about before now, that the security agencies are exacting force on the protesters, which is not ought to be, and then the general, General Musa said that they are against the enemies of the state, and we are still yet to know who are the enemies of the state. And the former presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, has come up to say that if anything happened to protesters, they are going to hold them responsible and accountable for that. What do you think about this? Because we also saw in a story where a man from Kaduna State came up to say that soldiers brought they followed his son to the house and killed him because he was involved in a protest. And we do not know, because those that they saw with arms, they arrested them, which was very clear in the videos. But in his own case, he said the son did not do anything. He didn't carry any firearm, he didn't carry any harmful objects. But they followed him to the house to kill him during this protest. So what do you think about Atiku's opinion? Do you think it's going to stand because the protest is still ongoing and people are still doing what they are doing?
Okay, for the records, it's expected of the personality of Atiku to throw in that caution. And in a Sena clan, it's what is expected of personality of such a public figure. And it's also a call to every officer out there who trying to hold the line against the protest escalating into threat to life and also vandalism or rioting. And it's also an indirect way of also reminding the protesters to ensure that the original intent of the protest, which is free of all forms of violence, is as enshrined in the Constitution, that drive should be a continual drive to ensure that the engagement that informs the protest should be strictly adhered to. However, holding responsible from his statement is neither here or there, because its points we are just coming out of a discourse with relation with persons who probably are victims of previous protests. In family line, family member will want to caution their word on the need to have a rethink. Yes, the hunger is biting hard. It seems as if we are faced with a system where government tend to or pretend to hear or listen, or are putting up measures to assuage the current challenge. But the feedback we are getting as Nigerians is not convincing enough, and it does not reflect government sensitivity towards the people's plight. Because if you have, as a leader, a foresight of taking your people to a destination of peace and prosperity, you should have a mechanism of communicating that, such that, as seen in some other parts of the world where the people's confidence in their government is intact and of course is on the high gear, you want to see that it's even the populace or the public or the citizenry that will stand their ground and carry out a mobilization to further help communicate government policy. But what we are seeing, when the trust factor is missing between the governed and the government, you tend to have some of this flash of distrust. And even if government tends to have intention to solving the problem, which of course I said, from my assessment of all of this, seems as if all the experts and economic advisors, players of industry, tend to have gone to holiday. And it's not as if we are just elusive of that commanding idea that will bring about the desired solution. You see that all technically looking at it from the point of the populace, all government idea in relation in arresting the economic woe seems to have been a policy somersault. It's not working. And because it's not working, the government is saying that you should be patient. How? Because we are not even seeing the light, let alone the tunnel. We can't even see the tunnel, let alone we want to see the light. And we are saying until we come to a common ground where the conversation from both ends, is, aiming at one objective, to making the country better for all. One may want to stand our position of, look, I have no faith in the system. And the system is not even, factured or designed to even hear my cry in a manner of discourse or dialogue. So what you want, you probably want a body language that is saying, look, we are not in support of your policy. After all, you say the government is for the people, by the people, and can't you just for one listen to
for the people?
And all that. But the government is saying, look, there are certain masquerade hiding among the people who we cannot mention, and we can also not go against. And that's very unrealistic. Then why are you in government?
So in other words, irrespective of what's happened to the protesters, the security personnel, like Atiku said, they cannot be held responsible and accountable.
That's the way it's looking at.
Is it a system, or that's what is in the law?
No, the law, of course, the law will always be very clear with such position. But the point is that we just came out of a discourse right now and say there are no enough grounds. So it's going to be the security agency say they are attacking their men. They are, infringing. Look at the incidents you mentioned about the young chap that was traced down to his house and of course was killed. Now, if you ask the argument from the point of the security, will tell you that probably immobilized some persons and they have intelligence gathering that is a threat to public peace. And he has gone as far as wooing sponsors, both local and international. You see that the immigration, the Air Force, and some other concerned stakeholders, particularly in the security setting, tells us that there are external sponsors of this protest who are hell-bent in creating unrest and shutdown of law and order in the society. And they say there is a concerted effort to ensuring they are monitored, and that some argument has it, that some report has it, that some of their bank and link have been blocked, as the case may be, but names are not mentioned. So in the wake of all this, Atiku is making a statement quite alright expected of his person, but literally on the ground, the reality that is on ground is that if any eventuality happens, those who probably will be at the loss will be those victims, because there will not be anyone who will advance their cause or seek judgment, seek justice for them. Even though the state owes it a duty to protect life and property. But what about those who probably property have been looted in the last few days? Who compensate them? The one even in 2012, some are, 2020, some are still yet to recover. Some of those massive monumental destruction done, over investment that took years to come by. Who is compensating
Mr. Wells, I just want to know, I know that they have been talking about the government is there to protect lives and properties, the security personnel also, as the case may be. These lives and properties, is it the lives of Nigerians or the people at the top? Is it the properties of the civilians or the people that are in that circle, in that circuit?
Within the context of the Constitution, life and property defined as every Nigerian.
All right, thank you. The last story for today on economic hardship. Agriculture expert has criticized the federal government's food palliatives as ineffective in tackling Nigerians' rising food prices. Akin Alabi, co-founder of Corporate Farmers International, argued that palliatives can't address the needs of Nigerians, over 200 million people, and suggested subsidies for farm input and empowering farmers as better solutions. Dr. Ishmael Oluwale highlighted issues with the uncoordinated distribution of palliatives and called for proper monitoring and market policies to reduce food costs. Omotunde Banjoko emphasized addressing root causes like farming insecurity, providing proper funding, and encouraging youth participation in agriculture to boost local productions and reduce food inflation. All right, so far, the federal government has been sending trucks of rice and other food items and also grants to alleviate hardship, economic hardship on Nigerians. And they are saying that that is not what they want. They want the federal government to do something about the fuel subsidy removal. And the agricultural expert has come to say that this is not enough to alleviate the hardship. And you can attest that two governors has come out to say even the 20 trucks of rice that the federal government sent to state has not gotten to them. And this is going to almost a month since that happened. And we have seen the federal government giving out 50,000 and also the students scheme, the loan scheme which they are going to pay back and all of those. So what do you think about this? Are they on the right tracks that this is not enough to alleviate the hardship in Nigeria? And do you think the federal government will give ear to this?
Of course, the reality is that the palliative is not intended for the generality of Nigeria. You hear from the report and the feedback from government that is apparently meant to the homes or the poor,
the vulnerables.
The vulnerables. If I want to ask you a question, are you among those vulnerables? There's a young child years ago who wanted to express himself in English, and he was just struggling. He said, look, English is not my language. See, there's one word that everybody understands. There is pressure everywhere. Hunger is everywhere. We need food. Now, these are positions that I roll out. I mentioned earlier that, you know, some of the policy of government tends to create the impression that we are working. But these workings are not, seen or effective. Because when you give every state 20 trailers of grains and then stable food, as the case may be, to alleviate. So for how many days? One bag of rice, you are expecting 300 persons to share.
How many cups?
So for how many days will that take them? So after this month, what next? Next month you bring another. So implying that. So these are some of the things to concern and stakeholders are saying that government is trying to create the impression that they are making efforts, but the effort, knowing fully well sincerely in any side of the divide, will know that the effort will not go anywhere. Why are you creating an impression that you are doing something that will not work? How about, that's why you probably want to see the argument of those who are saying, look, those who are probably responsible for our economic woes are among the population. But then the government is so scared that you can't go after these persons. So you tend to now make the generality of the population to feel the heat, so that their cry, somehow, can send a signal or a message to some of these persons who probably are responsible for our challenge. But the point is that if government, by its entirety and supported by the Constitution, has the wherewithal to arrest, apprehend economic saboteurs and prosecute them, and then you are now beginning to imagine then what's the essence of governance or government, because you have a duty to ensure that if there are persons who are responsible for such a misgiving that the entire populace are suffering, you go after them. And in a case where you cannot go after them, set up a policy that you are competent and then you know the job of governance. Otherwise, you still see some of these parochial arrangements trying to be nice, but at the end of the day, you still come back to the same space that you have probably, you might have committed millions or billions into some such project. At the end of the day, what about those states? When you were rolling out that some states are still here to get their 20 trucks, the question is, what is the state of the road to their state? Yes, because it's still back. You know, I was listening to a report a few hours ago, that some governors are not doing enough to making this load a bit lighter for the populace to carry. Because you now have a year subsidy is gone, it means that states are now, you know, having more. A few days ago, I got the report they share close to about 500 billion in the last month. And in that 500 billion, you are giving more to security at the state level, that you are pacifying some disgruntled elements who probably have a track record of fomenting trouble, and say, okay, this is your monthly stipends, ensure that there is calmness. You know, you and your group are troublemaker. We are settling you so that you don't foment trouble. You see this other gentle going about people, they are contented with their little business or whatever they do. As long as you power that be within the geographical location of your position, your area, can be calmer, we can arrest the other person. So it's a call that palliative giving, subventions will not solve the problem. You just have to ensure that government comes up with a policy that will have effective results, like you know, encouraging
You can also watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Good afternoon.